We are live. Zok the Halakha Gemara. Zok the Halakha Gemara. Yesterday, we were learning about weights and measures again. And the Gemara ended up saying that you're not allowed to have any weights and measures in your home that aren't accurate. And the Gemara said, if it's in a place where they actually come and calibrate, the government calibrates and certifies your measures on a regular basis, then it would be allowed because no one's going to use a weight or measure that's not calibrated. Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's not calibrated. But if they just check from time to time, that would be a problem because sometimes you're in a rush at the end of the day and you might end up using it even though it's not appropriate. So I'm going to start from the second to the bottom line on Peites Hamid Beis. Avo. Also saw what you're not even allowed to make arbitrary measurements. You're only allowed to use standard measurements. You can't make up your own measurement and decide to sell in your own unusual quantity. Have you ever noticed when you buy liquor in a liquor store, it comes in certain sizes, but when you buy it from the duty free, it comes in 1 liter. Why? Because the law is you're allowed to bring the law of how much liquor you're allowed to bring in without paying duty by duty free is limited to 1 liter. So they make bottles special to meet those minimum limits. Did you ever notice that? That's why the bottles you buy at the duty free are different sizes. So someone made up a new size to comply with the laws of what you're allowed to bring in duty free. So you're not allowed to just make up your own size. Who saw you're allowed to make a measurement called a saw, a tarkav, which are 3 cups, a chatzi tarkav, which would be 1.5 cups, the kav, you're allowed to make the measurement of a cup, a single cup, the chatzi kav, the roiva and the roiva kav, the toimin is 1/8 of a kav, the chatzi toimin is 1/16 of a kav, the uchla, and an uchla, which is even a smaller measurement, the kama hi uchla, echod mechamisha, 1/5 beravia. A ravia is I'm not sure if that's a ravia, a kav. I believe it's a ravia, a hin. No, roiv akav. The Rashbam says it first. Uchla echod mechamisha beroiv akav. Okay. Uvemidas halach, and when you're talking about liquids, so liquids are the same as volume, but when you're measuring volumes of, let's say, flour, you'll use a separate set of measurements when you're measuring volumes of liquids such as wine and oil. Which are all shiurim that you need actually in the Beis Hamikdash. The loik, the chatzi loik, urevis, a revis alike, ushminis alike, the echad mishmoina b'shminis, which is 1/64th, bizeu kortiv, and that is referred to with the word kortiv. Frag the Gemara. So these are the sets of measures. You know, when you buy a set of measuring spoons, they come on a loop and they have like 4 spoons together, tablespoon, teaspoon, smaller. So you're not allowed to make your own ones. So these are the whole list. They had a more extensive list than just 4 spoons that you would buy. They had like, it looked like 12, 13 here in the list. Frank Gemara, how come there wasn't another size available? Why aren't there 2 kavs? We had tarkav, right? We had chatzi tarkav, so we had 3. We have 1.5. We have 1. Why not 2? Why wasn't there ever a measurement of 2 kavs? Zok to Gemara, because it too closely resembles a tarkav, 3. So a keli that can hold 2 kavin too closely resembles a keli that can hold 3 kavin, and we're afraid you'll confuse them. Meaning you'll tell somebody you're selling him a tarkav, and when you measure it out, you only use 2 kavs, so you're shortchanging him by 1/3. Zok to Gemara. So by the fact that we don't make a keli kav, it's because someone could make a mistake on a third. Alma to inchi tilza. So now you're claiming that you're never allowed to have 2 measurements that are within 1/3 of each other because people can get confused. With an ihachi kav nami loyla avid, you shouldn't be able to make a keli that measures a kav the osi lechlufe bechatzi taka, A chatitaka is a kav and a half. If a kav and a half is not allowed, you shouldn't. If a kav and a half is a keli that's made, a kav shouldn't be able to be made because it's only 1/3 of a difference between the kav and the chatitaka. Ella, we have to abort the reason why kabayim wasn't made. Ella kabayim, hainu time of the Lord. You know why they didn't make a kabayim? Doesn't lechlufe bechatzi tarkav. So a chatzi tarkav, a tarkav is 3 kavs. Chatzi tarkav is a kav and a half. A kav and a half is 25%. It's not 30% anymore. It's 25% less than 2 kav. So now we're saying if it's a third away, there people will be able to see the difference, and you won't confuse them. But if it's only a quarter of the way, then someone might miss it. Almotoyichi river, ihachi, chatzi taimin, v'uchla, which are 2 shiurim that we mentioned earlier that are made, are within a quarter of some of the other shiurim there. It's very technical as to the details of the sizes. I'm not going to get into it. You shouldn't be able to make those. Papa, when you're up to the time in the uchla, you're already talking about really small shiurim. Like the uchla we said was 1/64th. It was 1/64. No, uchla was 1/64th. But uchla was 1/5 of Revi'ah. We're talking about relatively small shiurim. So Zok Gemara midas katanis beki behu inchi. Once you're dealing with really small quantities, that means you're dealing with a product that's very strong, like a spice. People are going to be very in tune to be able to know such subtle differences because the nature of what they're measuring is going to be more subtle. Zok Gemara, therefore, they didn't make them. There wouldn't be a problem. Midas katanich bekuba inchi. Frank the Gemara, what about shlisha shehin, revi'ah shehin, loy liavet? What about shlisha and revi'ah shehin? They're also within a third of a hin is within 25% of a quarter of a hin. So how could you make both those shiurim? And those are both in this list. Since these were shiurim that were in the base of mikdash, because they were regularly used to bring the oil of the minchas of different korbanos, that's why the Rabban word goes even for personal use. But b'mikdash nami ligzar, maybe they should make such a gzeira even in the base of mikdash because they could get confused. Kayhanim's reason when you're talking about avoida in the base of mikdash, Kayhanim have a din of reason they don't get mixed up. They're very accurate and they're very efficient. The whole b'shayla in where and when does Kayhanim's reason apply? Does it apply to all Kayhanim even when they're not in the base of mikdash? We know there's reason when it comes to the Tumah. Does it only apply to the base of mikdash? Does it apply only when the base of mikdash is standing or not now? So there's a lot of shots of where it applies. But I'll call upon them for sure in the base of mikdash to be able to tell the difference between the different shiurim. They've definitely had that eye to be able to do that. There's some Rishonim who learn that the only reason why Kadmar is reasoning is because they have a very strong supervisory body. That Sanhedrin was there watching every move that they made, and that's why there is reason, not necessarily by nature. I don't. Do you ever meet a kohen who slept in sometimes? Think of your friend in yeshiva who never wanted to get out of bed. Was that ever a kohen? I don't know. I'm not asking any questions. I'm not discussing any personal things. I tell my Adam. One of those children, how do I know? The Azoris could be chilled. I always tell my Adam is, I never want you to feel uncomfortable in my house. I want you to sleep as long as you want. So because of that, I'll sleep until 11. So even if you get up at 10:30, you'll feel good. But I'm not sleeping past 11. That I can't do it. So yes, Adam's reasoning. Amar Shmuel, Ein Moisifin Alamidos Yosy Mishtos. Let's say the government decided that they wanted to do the opposite of shrinkflation. They wanted to do Biden-inflation. They wanted to make everything bigger so you get more for your money. So instead of redoing all the measurements, we'll just say each measurement, an ounce is really a pound is really instead of a pound being 16 ounces, let's make a pound into 18 ounces, right? They want to start making things bigger. They want to supersize things. So the halacha is the maximum that a city or an organization can accept upon themselves to inflate measurement is up to 1/6. The same thing with a matbeya. If they want to make that a matbeya should have a higher metal content, they have to. They could up to a shtus. V'hamistaker, and someone who's selling product. This is a very detailed, controversial halacha. V'hamistaker, when you're selling something at a profit, al yistaker yoyse mishtus, your markup cannot be more than 17%. That's literally price control. So there's a huge shaila on how price control works. Let's just see if there's a Rashbam on this. Zogt the heilige Rashbam. Ein meisivin al hamidos. In bo anshe ya'ir, lohaisif al kol hamidos, ben gedolos, ben ketanos, levi cheshbon echad, mikur ad reviyah. So all the different measurements, they wanted to inflate them. Ulishaber midis harishonos to the leis limiti. We're not going to keep the old kelim and the new kelim because that would be too confusing. We'll get rid of all the old kelim and we'll start with new measurements that are bigger. Ein magdilan kim shtus yoyse. They're only allowed to inflate it by 1/6. If something was 5 beitzim until now, it can hold 5. So now we have another important piece of information that it's 1/6 milabar, not milagav, meaning you're allowed to increase it by 1/6. That after it's increased, the amount of the increase was 1/6 of what the total is now, not like you take 5 and you divide 5 into 6, and then you add a 6, which means the 1/6 would bring you to below 6, a little bit below 6. Rather, you look at it as 1/6 after you've added. I think that's called milabar. Lamistaker. Here's the controversial halacha. A chenveni who buys a lot of yayin and pears from the wholesaler as bulk, to sell it off in smaller quantities to individual purchases. Al yistaker yoyse mishtus. Maximum markup is 17%. I think a 6 is approximately 17%. Of course, this doesn't mean that if the commodity changes price because of conditions in the world, of course that's not included. Of course, you are allowed to adjust the price according to the shar. We're talking about how much you're allowed to charge over and above the shar. What if I bought the Shasagorin where things are much cheaper and I'm holding it on to now where things have went up across the board? I'm allowed to take advantage of a commodity going up in price. But as far as how much over and above what we would consider your net price could change. So whatever the net price is, you're not allowed to mark it up more than 17%. So this is a huge trial because nowadays people complain, kosher shitty wants $1.50 and they only want $1. I know. So how does a no apply nowadays? So first of all, there's many Rishonim who say it only applies to important food staples. There's some who say it only applies to food items, all food items. There are those who say it only applies to food staples, and that would include bread, that would include wine, but it might not include wine actually. And if it sure would include bread, it's a big shiloh if it includes even eggs. So there's a big shiloh to show them exactly what it applies to. But what's also very important to note is if you go into Kosher City and you find, let's say, milk is $5, and you go into No Frills and milk is $4, you can't say Kosher City is ripping me off, because when you're buying a product, you're not just buying a product, you're buying service as well. Somebody might have a higher ratio of cashiers to customers, while another won't. Some guy might give bags, or some guy might have better parking facilities. That costs money. That goes all into your overhead, into the store that you have. So when we're talking about, I know most poskim would say that today it's very, very hard to find a case where it would be I know, because every store today is not just selling a product; it's selling a service as well, right? Pusatari's is going to be a lot more expensive because you're paying for their fancy store, the fancy facility. I think they went bankrupt already, but you're paying for their fancy facility. But I'll call upon them. So it's not so simple to just say what it applies to, what it doesn't. It's pretty detailed. We're actually going to see that. We should be. I think we'll see that in the Rashbam today. That we're only talking about where it's literally two people in the same market, like in the shuk. They both have the same structure. That's where there's that limit. But when there's a different arrangement, one could have delivery, one might not have delivery. All these different things changes the product. Okay, so Zok to Gemara. Now we have these three rules. We have inflating coins, inflating shiurim. You shouldn't go more than a sixth, and there's price controls. You're not allowed to make more than a sixth, and the pashas that's only referring to staples of life. Zok to Gemara. Let's analyze Shmuel's halach. Ein ma'asifin al amidos Yosy mishtos. My time. What is the reason why you have to limit it to ashtos? Ilema mishum afku tara. If you're going to inflate prices, what you're also going to do is you're going to cause prices to go up. Because naturally, if I have to give more, I'm going to be charging more. And let's see how that'll impact the price overall. People who bring tfuah to this place, who don't have your set of measures, when they see that when I sell a kav, I have to give 1/6 more than what I give everywhere else, they're going to jack their price up. Once they jack their price up, all these grocers are using inflation as an excuse as to why they're raising prices. Once people raise their price, they don't raise it just to make up for inflation. They're going to raise it much more than that. Now that they have to raise it, they'll raise it way more than they have to. First of all, in anticipation of further cost increases, but more than that, they'll make a couple of bucks in the meantime. Right? Till they reacted, they lost money. Now they're going to make up for lost time. So whenever you give an excuse to raise the price, there's definitely going to be some profiteering involved. Okay. There was actually a tshuva that Rabbi Rosner mentioned from Rabbi Moshe from the 70s, where there was a funeral home. There was a city, a smaller out-of-town city, that had one Jewish funeral home. And they were taking such advantage when it was coming to still coffins. They were charging a fortune of money for coffins. That was not right. So the shayla of Rabbi Moshe was, can I open up a competitive funeral parlor? Is that called a sogus gvul? A or B, can people as a policy start buying their coffins from Goyish funeral? So Rabbi Moshe says, Avada you're allowed, because they're taking advantage. Okay, so Zok to Gemara weiter. What? If they're taking advantage. Yeah, if they're taking advantage. There's a famous story in Muncie with Rabbi Yaakov. Someone came over with Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky and asked him that he should tell people he was opening up a new pharmacy. And he asked Rabbi Yaakov to push people to come to him. He's the first Jewish pharmacy in Muncie. So Rabbi Yaakov says, as long as you're being fair priced, I'm going to push everyone your way. But if I see you're taking advantage of the fact that you're the only Jewish vendor and you charge more, then I'm going to tell everybody not to go to you. I don't know if I'm saying that story very accurately, but I remember such a story. Okay, Zok to more weiter. So why are you saying after shtus you're allowed to? Even if you increase the midos less than the shtus, it's also going to cause that same problem. Elamai, what is it? It's because we don't want it to be bittul mekach in the case of a ohino. What would be the case? What might happen? So the Rashbam illustrates exactly what might happen. Zogt the Rashbam, lahava bittul mekach, ela lahachi ein ma'asif and Yosy mishtos. You know why they didn't want to inflate the measures more than 1/6? Shum the oisay mecher dava achshav eino, a mecher that right now would be considered eino. In other words, if you would give today the amount of the new shiurim, you're giving a 1/6 extra. So we know when you give a 1/6 extra, if you give more than a 1/6 extra, then the moicher is nisana, and therefore the moicher can back out of the deal. But if it's only exactly 1/6, then we don't say you can back out of the deal. Rather, the person who's in the nisana will get paid back, will be compensated. So we want it to be ein shneim chosrin kishein ma'asif and shtos. So therefore, what would happen? We'll have a bittul mekach. So So the reason why we limited it to a shtus is just in case someone didn't realize what was going on, and now he charged the same price and he gave a little extra. We don't want him to be mevatel the mekach. So by limiting the increase to a shtus, it will not allow the mekach to be bottled, but he will be entitled to compensation. So that's why we didn't do it. They didn't want to make a takana. They didn't want to increase the sizes of each measure so much that it can lead to destroying a lot of deals. What would have to occur for a deal to get destroyed? You have these chamorim, the truck drivers, they bring tfua, which they purchased elsewhere, to sell here at a profit. They normally charge one dinner per cup. But if everything increased here, if everything here became supersized, and they're not aware that in this particular jurisdiction, the sizes change, what they're going to do is they're going to sell 5 kavin for 5 dinner. But 5 kavin here is bigger than what they're expecting the 5 kavin to be. So yitmu kamoykein hey kavin bei dinner. Now they have been hurt by a shtus because they're giving 1/6 more than they wanted to give. They thought they were giving because they didn't realize that your measuring kalim are bigger. I guess they don't use their own measuring kalim; they use the local measuring kalim. The vav kavin yesh b'hanihei. They think it's a keli that's measuring 5 kavin, but in fact it's 6. I'm sorry, it is, but the kavin here are bigger. So the keli that's labeled here kav is 1/6 bigger than what they know, and they might not realize it's not a huge difference. So what's going to happen is, so what will happen? So once they figure it out, all we'll do is we'll tell the customer they have to pay a little bit extra. But at least the deal is not off. We don't want to ruin deals. We don't want to destroy commerce. If they added 1.5 kav, which is more than the 6, that's a know that renders a deal null and void. So we don't want that to happen. We don't want to destroy deals. We don't mind if there's going to be some reconciliation, but we don't want that the deal should be destroyed. Frankly, that doesn't help. Because the Amar Rava called over Sheba Mida, Sheba Mishkal, Sheba Minyan, I feel pachas mechtei noach. The halacha is if something's worth $5 and I sell it for 6, there you say that the mekach is kaim, and you have to pay me the difference because there was a mistake in evaluating what this keli was worth. But if I tell you I'm selling you a gallon and I only sell you 7/8 of a gallon, that's not called oidah. That's outright mekach. I told you I'm going to sell you an apple and I sold you an orange. It's a different item. So when it comes to shortchanging in an amount, that doesn't follow the rules of oidah, where you don't say bittul mekach. There you say bittul mekach even on a mashu, because that's not a mistake in assessing the value of something. That's simple thievery. You're misrepresenting yourself. But it's still not the word that the Rishpam uses. It's not a mistake in shikul adas, in professional assessment. It's the wrong shear. It might not be because they're showing. It might be a miscommunication, but it's not a mistake in assessment. So v'yamar Rava called over Sheba Mida, v'Sheba Mishkal, v'Sheba Minyan, afilu pachas mechdei, even if you shortchange somebody by a small amount, the whole mekach will be bought. So you haven't solved your problem. So that can't be a reason to stay within 1/6, because bittul mekach is happening here no matter what. So again, what is the reason that Shmuel limited it to 1/6? Ella the loyla have a pseida l'tagra. We're assuming how much is the profit margin of this merchant selling the wheat? 1/6. Since he's getting messed up, if he happens not to notice that the kalim here became bigger, so at the end of the day, he's going to look, will he have a loss? Here, he won't have a loss because at least he's getting his cost out of it. So he came in with $100 worth of tefua, and he walks out with $100. He might be scratching his head, where's my profit? But at least he got out with his skin. We're not talking about Mekach anymore. We've aborted that reason, because if that was the reasoning why they limited it to a 6, there would be Mekach. So now it's for a different reason. It's so even if the tiger makes a mistake and he doesn't even chap, at least he walked out with his skin. Right? The Gemara, is that all you care about? I don't understand. You only want to protect him that he shouldn't lose money? Why don't you want to protect him that he should make money? Do you not consider the fact that maybe he went to a different place and he had to have a chamor and he had to schlep and he had to come and he had to set up? Is he not entitled to a little bit of profit too? So you're suggesting that it's appropriate and acceptable that we should just make sure that people don't lose money? Zovan v'zovan tagrikri. Someone who buys and sells for the same price. That's what you call a merchant. That's someone who's spinning his wheels, right? So you can't say that that's the reason either. Because if the Rabbanim wanted to protect the merchants from loss, they will also be protecting somewhat their margins. Elo Amar B'chista, Zot B'chista, Shmuel Kro Ashkach V'Dor Ha'ash. You know where Shmuel got this limit of 1/6? It's from a pasuk. And the Rishbam interestingly says, and we'll see it inside, that, but there's still a svara to the pasuk, and we'll see that in a second. So it says in the pasuk, V'Hashekel Esrim Geira. The pasuk says a shekel is Esrim Geira, and then it says as follows: if you combine the following three weights, Esrim Shkolim, Chamisha Esrim Shkolim, and Asara v'Chamisha shekel. So what's 5 plus 25 plus 15? 5 plus 25 is 30, and 30 plus 15 is 45. Did I add that up right? What? So if you add it all together, Hamona Yolachem. That adds up to a Mona. So we're gonna have to look at the calculation of the money a little bit. But before we get onto the Amud Beis, I just want to look at the Rishbam here at the bottom. Kro Ashkach, the Omar that says Masivin Shtos, we always learn, it's always very confusing to me. We always learn about Kesef Tsuri and Kesef Medina, how things were added and inflated, and it makes it so confusing to understand the numbers. So we're going to have to delve a little bit into this, but we're going to see that whenever they inflated in the Navi, this is in Yecheskel. I believe this is in Yecheskel. Even when they inflated, it was inflated up to a maximum of 1/6. Yeah, it's in Yecheskel. V'hilchach muter lahaysev. Where are we up to? That's why Shmuel created this limit of a shtos. The pasuk is not there. The pasuk's focus is not concerned about protecting the tager, because if that was the case, even a small amount, we already discussed that. When we are Yosy mishtos, ein moisifin mishum say to the tagra sharei hiter hakosov the chenir hatam be'enai. So here the Rishbam is saying, even though we're basing the limitation of 1/6 on the pasuk, but there's still a method to the madness. And you see, the Torah is concerned that the tager shouldn't lose, but the Torah is not concerned that the tager should make money. That was the limitation that was created. But misvar alone to make that, maybe Gemara wouldn't have said that. But now that you see a pasuk that the Navi did that, so that became accepted. So what does it say there? Hashekel Esrim Geira. Mois Katanis, a Geira is the smallest measurement. I think that's the weight of a kernel of barley. Sheishman Hebed dinner. There's 5 of those in the dinner. Esrim Shkolim, Chamisha Esrim Shkolim. Also, I wasn't right. Esrim Shkolim Chisho, it's 45. So it's a total of 50. It's 60, right? It's not right. Because it's 20 plus 25 is 45, and 45 plus 15 is 60. So 60 shekel is a mana, right? Mana comprises of 60 shekel, and there's Torah on it. Why couldn't the Navi just say 60 shekel? Why did it break it down into these 3 components? But whatever the case is, the 60 shekel in total adds up to a mana. This is not what we're working with. The Yesh Mekom, so let's skip that. But a kolpam we're saying a mana is 60 shkolim. So let's think about that. If a mana is 60 shkolim, okay, so then let's think about this. A mana is 60 shkolim, and each shekel has in it 4 dinarim. So that 60 times 4 is 240. So there will be 240 dinarim in a mana. Okay, so let's have a look. Right, Gemara, is that the case? Is that the case? Mana, Moton Varbarin have it? Are you telling me that a mana is 240 dinarim, that's impossible. And now the Rashbam gives us a little bit of the breakdown. Bitmiya, v'chihaba amona, shishim shkolim, dahanu mosan v'arboim dinner? Are you telling me, based on the pasuk that we just quoted from the Navi, that the mana will work out to 240 dinner? A shekel dollar dinner. A shekel is 4 dinarim. And we're talking about 60 shkolim. 60 times 4 is 240. But that's not true. Because v'akaim alone, mana is chafei line. We always understood that a mana is 25 slime, the Hainu Meir Zuz, which are 100 Zuz, right? We always know a mana is 100 Zuz. Now suddenly it became 240. Kidamrina Lubesulam Asayim will mana mana. Masayim is Zuz and mana is 100 Zuz. So where did you get this from? Shemami no, it must be that there were some changes made. First of all, mana shall kodesh kafel hoya. Whenever you're dealing with mois hektish, you always double it up. So that doesn't discuss the inflation, but rule number 1, 100 zuz for oil. If you're talking about giving that to hektish, you're automatically doubling it up and giving 200 zuz. I guess so, yeah. Ushmamina, it's a whole shekel of choil. That's right. Ushmamina, well, where did the extra 40 come? Ushmamina, maisivin alamidos, ve maisivin Yosy mishtos. So let's look at the Rashbam. Kavel hoya. Chamishim shkolim. So really, amon is 25 shkolim. For hektish, it's automatically 50 shkolim. The chamisha shkolim hamayusarin, because we're saying we're adding 5 shkolim from 25 to 30 in choil, and therefore from 30 to 60 in kodesh. So where's the extra 5 shkolim in the choil coming from to make up amona? The mana became epis bigger. How did the mana suddenly become 30 shkolim when the mana used to be only 25 shkolim? That's the Tosfos Shtus, because they must have made a change in regular money to add 1/6 to the value. 6 times 5 is 30. So it used to be 25. They added a shtus again, mi legav, and therefore they made the shekel of choil into 5. They made a shekel. They made the mana of choil into 30 shkolim from 25 shkolim, which means the kodesh will be 60. But we're looking at the choil part. They changed it from 25 to 30. That is our limitation of a 6. So here you see in the Navi, that when you add to a currency, you can add up to a 6. So Shifu al Mana shel choil chamisha shloim al chofei, which brought it to a total of the Hainu Lamed shloim. Uchshat the koifel eshel kodesh hava shisim shkolim. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of when they sell aliyahs in the Chassidish Shtibel on Yom Tov. $1,000 coin. They double it and triple it for kodesh. Okay. You know, they say over a story where a Litvish boy did up a wealthy English shidduch, and the Shverig said, "Listen, I can't support you; it's too expensive enough money." And they weren't able to help. The Shverig couldn't help him too much. The first Yom Tov that he's there, his Shver bought him an aliyah for $50,000, and he tells his wife, "I don't understand. Your father said he can't support us; he's not helping us, and you just spent $50,000 on an aliyah because it's really only $50. Yeah, it's only $50." $50,000 coin. Okay, Zok to Gemara weiter.
Make the person that doesn't know.
Yeah. Zok to Gemara weiter. So we learned 3 things. We can extract 3 pieces of information from this pasuk. The first thing we picked up is Shmamina. Right away, we know that you always double the value of a Monashal Kodesh. We also know that they inflated the mana of choil from 25 shkolim to 30 shkolim, which is the 1/6 limitation. You also see that you look at 1/6 after it's added, not before it's added, which gives you more room to add, not less room to add. Rapapa bar Shmuel, talking Kaila, he made up his own currency. He made up his own measurement. He set up a new measurement, which as we discussed, is very controversial to make up a measurement. He made up a measurement by Tlosa Kapizi. It was 3 Kapizi, and a Kapiz, the Rashbam tells us, there's actually 2 pshatim in the Rashbam. We'll just work with 1 pshat for now. Tes Lugin. It was 9 Lugim. The Kapiz, who Kav Choser Lug, a Kav is Dalet Lug, so a Kav Choser Lug would be 3 Lugin. and therefore three of these kapizis are 9 lugin. He made up his own share of 9 lugin. I guess he decided that would be a good measurement to use. Amrle, they told him, how could you do that? The Amar Shmuel ein moisifin alamidos yosher mishtos. You're not allowed to add more than a shtos. You're not allowed to add more than a sixth. Zok Rishbam v'zen noisif al chatzi takav shlish. This is a new measurement that's a little that's a third more than a chatzi takav if you do the math, and therefore you shouldn't be allowed to make a new measurement that's too close to an existing measurement that could now be confused. Amalu, no. Ana kaila chadid takini. The measurement that I made is unique and it's not near any of the other ones. In other words, we don't have any of none of the measurements that we've listed above that are within 1/6 of all of these other measurements around. We don't have by us. So in my area where I made this is innovative, and therefore there's no problem. Zok to Rashbam, Ana Kaila Chada Mastakinina, She'ein Be'ir Azois Mida Acheres, Halava Toisvis, Holoyovi, Lehefsid Taga. There is nothing that you could compare this to that it would be confused with, and therefore it will not lead to a Tager losing it all. The Gamla Litis Beriva, She'ein Be'ir Azois, we don't have some of the popular measurements that could be confused, such as a Chatzi Takav, the less limited. None of the sizes, the popular sizes that could be confused with my new size, exist in the city. So where I made this new measurement, there's no concern that it would be a problem. How well was his new measurement accepted? In Pumbedisa, they refused to accept this measurement. In Papa now, which is Trudeau's writing, that's where they accept it because everything goes there. The Karile Rus Papa. What do they call this new measurement? They call it the measurement of her Papa. Simin Aitre Paris, Ein Aitrin, Vein Mitzin, Vein Mistakrin, Haman Bebeitzim, Asrin, Vloy Mitzin. Taner Rabbanan. Aitre Paris. If somebody wants to corner the market, so let's say he buys an entire crop of oranges of Florida one year, so that he could corner the market and then jack up the price, that's a very bad thing. Umalva beribis, no need to explain. Umaktine efa. Pashup shot is they start selling, labeling something as an efa where it's not really an efa. These are all people who are stealing, right? Umafkia sharm, and people who manipulate the markets to make them go up. Alema kasavoymar, the Tosik says about them, this is an almost where the Torah, the Navi is talking about bad people. They say, Leimar Mosai Yavor HaChodesh, when will the Chodesh go away? When Ashbira Shaver, and then we'll be able to start selling after we hoard everything, after the harvest season, when prices start to go up, we'll hoard and we'll make a fortune. Shabbos, or when will the Shemitah pass, where everybody can take for free, and then V'nipta Chabar, and we'll be able to open up and sell and make a fortune of money. L'haktin ephah, they make the ephah smaller. L'hagdil shekel, to make the shekel bigger. Now those who learn it's referring to ribis, that's how you make your shekel bigger, by lending and taking on more. V'la'avois moizne mirma, and to do different type of tricks that ruin scales, in other words, that are going to be cheating people. So there's a group of cheaters, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says about them, Nishba Hashem b'gon Yaakov, HaKadosh Baruch Hu swearing in the name of Yaakov, im eshkach lo netzach chol masayim, if I'll ever forget their horrible averis. So that's what the Navi says. It speaks very, very harshly against these evil people. So Oitre Paris, one of the items in the list that the Brisa says is you're not allowed to do is Oitre Paris. Kagoid man. I love this. There's a guy who was Mizana. Let me give you an example of Mizana. And I tell you who in our school is Mizana. That's a little bit of a problem, right? But that's what happened over here. Who's an Oitre? Give me an example of a guy who did this mitzvah. We want to know, maybe I'm looking for a good shidduch for my daughter. Tell me an example of someone who's Oitre Paris. Shapti Oitre Paris. Shapti was a famous lowlife, and he was an Oitre Paris. So no one's going to do a shidduch with him. Other people say, what do you mean? It's probably a kfir for sure. I want to do a shidduch with him. I'm not sure. Going Shapti Oitre Paris, he was known to be a lowlife because what he would do is he would try to corner the market, and hurt people, as the response says, could they link or lanim b'yoker? He would quickly buy up everything. There was nothing available. They had to buy from him, and then he would rip people off. Aval kagoyin, Aval kagoyin the utter peri, the shas hazoil, umoichim bezoil lanim, the shas hayoker could come on. What if you taka buy everything out now, but you buy it out with good intentions? Because eventually, the price is going to go up, and you want to be able to offer discounted prices later on. So is that a good thing? It might be a good thing, but you're still causing the price to go up because you're hoarding. But Zokt, we're going to see in a minute, someone did that. That's allowed to be done, even though you're inadvertently causing things to go up because you were hoarding and you're buying out the market. So let's see what happened. Abu the Shmuel, you know what he used to do? What he would do is he would buy up all the payers when they were cheap, and he would sell them right now when they were cheap. So he didn't have an impact on the market because he kept the market flooded with cheap payers, which is what his intention was. He figures if he buys it up, it'll stop the bad guys from buying it up. But what happened was a Shmuel Beret, Shmuel, what he did was Machti Leperi Umazmanu Batara Afela Hitara Harpa. What he would do is he would buy it up for cheap for $5 a pound. He would hold it for 6 months when it was $10 a pound, and he would still sell it at a discount of $5 a pound. That sounds like it's a good thing. But as we just saw a minute ago, it's not so good. The father did a better deed than the son. My timer, the fact is you bought everything out. The moment you buy everything out, it inadvertently will cause prices to go up. So you're causing prices to go up. Shmuel didn't cause things to go up because he put it right back on the market immediately. So the market never was impacted. Amarav, Adam es kavoy oitzer. Your own food that you need for yourself, avada, you're allowed to hoard away. You're allowed to put away what you need for yourself. That you're allowed to. As kavos up to which you're gathering from your own field. Kaveh means what a Kosh gave you. You're not allowed to buy out the market, but what you make yourself, avada, you're allowed to hold on to and store and sell sell when you want to. So whatever you yourself plant, you can hold on to as long as you want, even to make more money to sell later. It's not only not buying out from the market and causing the price to go up, but you're even allowed to hoard and buy if you need it to feed your family. So Dr. Gemara weiter.
Now we're looking at the selling grapefruit,
It's just for yourself, exactly. For your family, you're allowed to buy. Dr. Gemara, you're allowed to do that. Things that you have to survive on. Those are staples. Because again, those aren't staples. You can live without them. We're not so concerned about protecting the market on maybe luxury items. It's always mutter. So we have the right to what we just said. Let's our payers bear Israel. In Eretz Yisrael, where there's Shemitah, and for 3 years there won't be food available you need to save from the 6th year for the 6th, 7th, and 8th. So there you're allowed to hoard for 3 years. Gimel Shanim, Erev Shvius, Ushvius, and Motzoi Shvius. But if it's a hungry year, Afilu Kav Charuven, even the Kav Charuven basic staples, Lo Yetzar, you're not allowed to warehouse because it automatically will raise prices when food is scarce. Tapuga is Shabbos. Point go out, Atzorli Peri Shaloshanim, make sure to put away payers for 3 years, Erev Shvius, Ushvius, Umotzoi Shvius. And there's a shaila amongst the Achronim. What is the mile of this story? It repeats word for word what the Brisa says. So the Mefarshim speak about it. Either we had a couple of blot ago that a story is always a bigger raya than just a halacha, but there's also, it could be it has to do with if you're allowed to be ma'aber d'shana, it has to do with being ma'aber d'shana. You're not allowed to be ma'aber d'shana in those years because you can't plant. So you don't want to extend the period of time that you can't plant, but I'm not sure how you see it from here. Ein Maitin Peres Meretz Yisrael. You're never allowed to take pears out of Eretz Yisrael. Dvarim sheyesh ben chay nefesh kun yenoi shmonim esoltos. Now, this is also a big shaila because nowadays there's many pears that are exported from Eretz Yisrael. So First of all, the Rishonim speak about what if someone produced pears specifically for export? Whether you're allowed to. Or what if ultimately it's not going to harm Eretz Yisrael? It's going to benefit Eretz Yisrael. So it's not an absolute rule that you're not allowed to ever be moichi pears from Eretz Yisrael. There are those who learn it's only got a pear shemitah even because you won't be mevayired properly. You won't deal with the kedusha. Anyway, if you do Mizayir mater b'yayin, he's mater by wine. You know why? Mepnei shemamayit is a tifla. Better there shouldn't be too much wine in Eretz Yisrael because the wine, alcoholic beverages bring to shikris, which brings to bad things. So better take all the wine out. Because Surya is not considered part of Eretz Yisrael, which is again the whole controversy, but we don't have time to discuss that now. Meaning if you have two border cities, one in Eretz Yisrael and one over the border in Surya, you're allowed to go. The only thing I want to point out is the Marsha. The Marsha says, when I saw this Gemara, I finally understood the Ma'aseh by the Meraglim. Because what did it say? It said the Meraglim says, yes, we took pears to the Zeh period. The Zeh period. So what's the big Lashon Hara? What's the big Lashon Hara? They're beautiful pears they're showing up. The Zeh period, what did they have? They had grapes. They were trying to say, you know what type of land this is? There's narcotics on the street. It's a horrible country. He said, but he only capped it to Mashma. When I saw him at the Tivla, there's a problem with wine. We want to get the wine out of Eretz Yisrael. Now I understood what the Avla of the Meraglim was when they said Vizet period. Okay, we'll stop here.
Father,